Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Fins Nation. I am your host, Louis Sung, and I am joined by my good friend, Chris Early, otherwise known as Duke. Today, we are going to be looking at some reflections of the Miami Dolphins preseason game, their dress rehearsal, as it were, as they faced off against the Houston Texans in Houston and defeated them 28-3. Now, as we all know, the preseason ultimately doesn't mean a whole lot, but we can take away some player evaluations, and we can at least let ourselves be a little bit excited, because even if it is preseason, it's still more fun to win than it is to lose. Would you concur with that, Duke?
Absolutely.
So whether it's preseason or not, winning is better than losing. All right, we're going to get into everything that we saw from that game. And before we do that, though, just want to mention that, as always, this show is brought to you by our good friends over at You Brake Wheel Fix. You Brake Wheel Fix is the complete automotive wheel solution. Ever parked too close to the sidewalk curb? You Brake Wheel Fix specializes in the repair of damaged wheels from bends, cracks, and curb rash. Or maybe your wheels are faded or peeling. You don't need to replace them, as You Brake Wheel Fix can refinish them to like new. Offering complete refinish options through powder coating, machining, and polishing, You Brake Wheel Fix is the answer to all of your wheel needs. And if you're just looking to give your ride a new look, You Brake Wheel Fix also offers many car customizing options, such as new custom wheels and tires from your favorite brands, performance upgrades, window tinting, and suspension modifications. Located just south of Aventura, you can reach Mark and his staff at 305-748-0112 or online at youbrakewheelfix.com. They are really active on all social media platforms at You Brake Wheel Fix, so shoot them a DM on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. It is Twitter. I don't care what you call it. It's Twitter. And get an estimate in just minutes. So don't delay. Go to You Brake Wheel Fix and start customizing your ride to show off your Dolphins fandom today. This show is also brought to you by PrizePicks.com. PrizePicks.com is a revolutionary fantasy platform where you can now pick up to 6 different players across professional sports leagues. Whether that's the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, one of each, it's up to you to decide. Just choose whether your chosen player will get more or less than their projected stat. They give you free squares, special Taco Tuesday promos, Flex Friday specials where you can get your money back if you lose, or multiply the amount of money you can normally win. So with offers like that, it's hard to justify not signing up if you are any kind of a fantasy sports fan. So use the promo code 5, that's F-I-V-E, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. Again, that's promo code 5, F-I-V-E. Go to prizepicks.com, deposit your $100, and let PrizePicks give you $100 of their dollars for you to play with and get started winning today. All right, Duke. So I've always trusted your evaluations. You know a lot about football. You've even taught me some things about what it means to be the 1 gap, 2 gap, 3 gap, and all that wonderful stuff. So I've learned a lot from you. So you watched the game and you actually rewatched some portions of it already. So I wanted to get your thoughts on your reflections on that dress rehearsal game, as it were, for the Miami Dolphins.
Well, start the most important thing that we should talk about is that Tua threw an interception.
That's the most important thing.
Yeah. So, but in all seriousness, I mean, he admitted that was a bad play. It was a bad way to start, and it was almost one of those where you're like, if you were on Twitter when that happened, you're like, let's just back away, come back later.
Yeah, that's what I was like. Oh well, that's not a good start. Let's try that again.
So that was not that was not good. But get the stupid stuff out of the way now. The defense obviously responded immediately, got a stop. I mean, I think it's 3 points in a real football game, but of course the Texans are trying things out too, and they went for it on 4th down. But then the drive, I mean, the first 2 plays were awful. You had the interception, and then you had the whatever happened on that. Next
Connor Williams
play.
Botched the snap, and then Tua couldn't grab it, and then he like kind of bobbled it, like, here, you take it. Like, it was Raheem Mostert.
I mean, it was really bad all the way around, but then they got it going. So the first team offense looked pretty good. First team defense, we didn't really see all of them. I think particularly the edge rushers.
Christian Wilkins was out. Chubb was in. Phillips was in.
Phillips was in, Chubbs were in, and they did not play on the second series, if I recall. So David Long got in there on the second series. I saw Zach Sealer on the second series, but I didn't see the edge rushers. So those guys got in and got out quick. We saw the mainly the starting secondary for a couple series. So all in all, I think it went well. I don't think Fangio's calling anything important right now. I think it's mostly just, basic stuff. So, I wouldn't judge too much of what's going on with the secondary or really any of that.
Well, semi normal. There was. Were you watching when you watched it? Were you watching the Texans broadcast?
Yeah, that's the broadcast that I
Yeah, that was
got.
the
So
broadcast that you got. So yeah, apparently David Long Jr. got one linebacker blitz, and ND
that
Kalu
was
up in
not a
the.
blitz.
Oh, wasn't. So
No,
ND Kalu was just
that
griping for no reason.
no, yeah, and I actually tweeted that. I responded to a tweet about that. It was just a run fit. If you go back and watch it, particularly, I mean, I don't have the all 22, but if you go back and watch the broadcast, they show it from the end zone angle, uh, and the ball is snapped, and he's not blitzing, he's not rushing up to the line. He sees the flow, and within a second, he's running through the gap. I mean, if it was a blitz, it just looks a blitz looks different than what that is. That was just simply he fit his
He
gap
saw a hole
and
and
made the
ran
play.
through it.
Yeah, I mean that's just great linebacker play. So that was not a run blitz whatsoever. Not a run blitz or any kind of blitz. That's just a really good play from the linebacker. So that yeah, they're playing basic stuff. I mean, you might, and I don't think Fangio is probably going to practice a lot of blitz in preseason simply because he doesn't call them a lot traditionally. So I think you're going to see just basic stuff from him, and maybe that stuff they'll work on it, and when they're game planning for certain opponents or whatever. But yeah, I think we're just going to see basic simple coverages just to get out there and watch these guys do stuff. So I'm not going to look at the secondary with anything more than just these guys are just playing basic stuff. The offense is going to go out there. The Houston Texans offense and any offense really, it's going to go out there and play against basic stuff. So it's really hard to gauge anything other than kind of the mechanics of how it's working. So, with that said, the first team offense moved the ball really well. The most important thing that we got from this game is that they focused on running the ball. And I think that's going to be I think it's going to be a major focus with Mike McDaniel. And it should be, the more they can run the ball and the more effectively they can run the ball, the more dangerous this offense is going to be, because we already know what Hill and Waddle can do outside. Um, we don't have any word on the injury to A-Chain, but you know what the speed can do in the passing game. Now, if we can just incorporate the rushing attack more and see more attempts, and if they can run as effectively as they did in this game, man, this offense is going to be very, very difficult to stop, because you're not going to see those same coverages to take away Hill and Waddle that you did last year, because those defenses will be susceptible to the rushing attack. So, if it gets going, this offense is going to dictate a lot of what goes on in games. So it's going to be fun to watch. The starting offensive line I thought did well.
I was watching Austin Jackson very carefully when I did my
Um,
rewatch. He was basically the only one I was watching during my rewatch, and I didn't see anything that made me want to rip my hair out. So I guess that's a good thing.
Well, I watched him a couple times, and I think mostly it was Will Anderson that he was playing against. Anderson got him a couple of times, pushed him back, um, just from a preliminary watch. The third down pass to Barrios, great pass by Tua, by the way, over a safety in front of another, uh, beautiful touch pass. But if you watch that play, Austin Jackson's getting pushed back into Tua a little more than I would like. He held his own there. There's a couple of other plays like that. So I don't think he played as well in this game as he did against the, the
The
the the
Falcons.
Falcons.
But to be fair,
Um,
though, again, Will Anderson Jr. is a top 3 draft pick, and he was considered
he
probably the
is.
best defensive player in the entire draft. So for Austin
He
Jackson
was,
to
and
even
so
hold his own is already something better.
the drawback there is he's a young player that has thrived on um, being the man. Uh, probably in high school and then in college level. Now he's at the pros. He's not going to win as often as he's used to, just based on pure athleticism. He's got to work on some counter moves. So the problem there is, if Austin Jackson does well, against Will Anderson, he's still the rookie. I'd like to see him against a more savvy veteran presence. Um, like the other guy that started on the other side, Jonathan Grenard, I'd have liked to seen him go up against Jackson as well, just to see what he would have done against somebody that maybe could throw a counter punch at Jackson. With that said, Kendall Lamb pretty much, erased Grenard.
Yeah, I had no complaints with Kendall Lamb.
We didn't see, there was not a single pressure allowed that I can recall from the offensive line. The one that Tua threw away, where the video where he falls and everybody was highlighting that. That was a tight end blitz or tight end screen, excuse me. So I mean, there's going to be some natural pressure there as part of the play, but it wasn't the offensive line just getting beat. It was part of the play design. Somebody didn't do what they were supposed to do completely, but it wasn't just, oh, this guy just got beat. So the starters, Tua had time to throw, even if he was throwing fast, had clean pockets. The third down pass that he threw to Durham Smythe, clean pocket, nobody around him, just able to step up and make a throw. So that's what we want to see. But again, the running game, I thought Mostert did well. Obviously, Savon Ahmed did well. I liked what I saw from Chris Brooks. There's going to be some talent on this team that's going to get cut. And I know we say that every year, and usually, we don't see that many people poaching.
Yeah, we overestimate our own players a lot.
There's going to be some guys that are going to make other teams. And it was good to see Cedric Wilson get involved. He had a big, a fourth down catch from Skylar Thompson.
Yes, from Skylar Thompson. He was going out into the flat.
And so he caught a pass, made a big play. I think that was the play right before the Chris Brooks screen touchdown, actually. So that was in the second half. Ezukama played well. I mean, we saw a lot of good from this team, more good than bad, I thought, at least from the guys that we're expecting to see every Sunday. It's going to be – that's so far as my biggest takeaway is just the offensive line played well. We ran the ball well. And all in all, we looked like a team that should beat a team that had a high pick in the draft very well. That's what we did.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like the running game in particular, we talked about that in the post-game show too. Is like that was the thing that really got everybody talking. I mean, combined, the entire team ran the ball. Let's see, 12 carries for Ahmed, 11 carries for Brooks. Already we're up to 23. You add 6 more from Raheem Mostert. That's 29. Devon Achane got 6, so that's 35. And then finally Skylar Thompson, but I mean, that's not so much running the ball as it is just him scrambling and looking for something to not lose yards, but still. So that's 38 carries in the box score. That's
two of those Skylar Thompsons were kneel downs. So
oh, okay. So there you go. So technically, well, even still though. So if you even if you take away one, so 1, 7, 13, 25, 36 carries total for the Miami Dolphins, and nobody on this roster had anything less than 4.3 yards a carry. Christopher Brooks actually had the least of it, 11 carries, 47 yards, 4.3 yards per carry. And Christopher Brooks, you know what? It really does make sense now why the Dolphins were not pushing and why they were not like desperate to sign up Dalvin Cook. Like I already knew that they really wanted Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson and Devon Achane. Like they wanted that to be their core as far as the running backs were concerned. I already got that. I knew that. I still wanted to be greedy. I still wanted Dalvin Cook because, it's like Dalvin Cook, the ultimate luxury signing. Who's the guy that's going to back up Dalvin Cook in Miami? Oh, it's going to be Raheem Mostert, who already almost ran for 1,000 yards last season. So what more could you ask for? But watching them play against the Texans, and I understand, granted, it is the Texans. We can't, and it's the Texans in the preseason, so we can't act like, oh, this is just this massive victory for Miami. But just watching them run the ball, it looked like they were able to get enough push. They were able to open up some holes. Raheem Mostert ran through them. The thing about it is that we got so hooked up into the Dalvin Cook hype that we completely forgot about the fact that Raheem Mostert knows this offense probably better than any other running back on this roster, even more so than Jeff Wilson. And so he knows what he needs to do to make this offense function. He's been practicing in this offense since his days in San Francisco. He knows where the holes are going to be opened up. He knows where he needs to be. 6 carries, 30 yards, nothing spectacular, but he did run in for a touchdown. And you're going to see that a lot. Like, I think once a player has played in the majority of the games, I think we need to start giving them a break on the whole, oh, he's injury prone and we're just a matter of time before he ends up going out for the season. Mostert played until the end of the season. He missed like maybe 2 games with like a little dinged up thing here, but so did Jeff Wilson, and nobody was talking about how injury prone Jeff Wilson was. So I feel like at this point, watching what the Dolphins did with the running game, you can obviously see why they weren't pushing to get Dalvin Cook, because Savon Ahmed's running for a lot of yards, 99 yards on 12 carries for Savon Ahmed. Chris Brooks, this guy's a bruiser. And that's probably the one thing that the Dolphins are missing on this team is a bruiser running back. So maybe if they can manage to stash Chris Brooks on the practice squad, you can call him up one game when you figure, oh, you're probably going to need a couple of 4th and 1 runs, and maybe you don't want to just use Alec Ingold as the runner. Maybe you want to use Ingold as a fullback and then let Brooks try to pound it in on the 1-yard line. So they have options there in the running game, and I'm honestly surprised by how strong the talent is in this offense. Like, I knew the offense that Mike McDaniel had lended itself to becoming very running back friendly, but I had underestimated just how good they could potentially be.
And I know it's again preseason, but last game the Texans held the Patriots to 78 yards on 25 carries. So, and they mentioned that on the broadcast that was a strong point of their team from at least that game. And then the Dolphins come out and put up 100. I think what was that tweet? 140 yards in the first half on them. So, and I mean, I know we had some big runs that bump up the averages a little bit, but it's not to me so much the success of the running as it was the dedication to the running. And I know some of that was the second half, particularly the fourth quarter, when they're not throwing the ball. At that point, the game's over. They're not going to throw the ball. They have no reason to attempt another pass. And so there was a lot of attempts that went there. But just the overall dedication to running the football. And I think I mentioned on the Pulse last week that you want to keep Tua upright, keep Tua healthy for 17 games, run the ball a lot. It's going to slow the pass rush down. It's going to slow the defense down and takes the ball out of his hands. You're not getting hit when you're handing the ball off to a running back that's getting 5-6 yards a carry. So that was the best thing to see was just the dedication to them running the football. So because you've still got to do it even if it's not effective. Hopefully it will be more effective. And I think what we saw from the starting offensive line, there was one play, I think it was a wide run to the right. If you look at it, it looks kind of like almost like a failed play, like the blocking wasn't all the way there, but Mostert still gets 5 yards out of it. And I can recall a time, I don't want to say not too long ago in the past because it seems like time goes faster now, but I can remember times when the Dolphins would try to run the ball wide and you might as well just take a knee and play the next down. It was either a loss of down, a loss of yards, 0 yards. And here they are running outside and the blocking's not 100% and they still get 5 yards out of it. So that's, with the starters in there, particularly when they're Hill and Waddle are in there and they're drawing defenses toward them, the running game is going to be there. And I think the addition of Isaiah Wynn at the left guard position, I want to go back and watch him again, and I want to watch Robert Hunt again. I want all the offensive linemen. I know it takes a while, but I try to watch each one of them individually on each play, just to rewind and say, all right, what did this guy do? How did he block? There was one, I don't remember what play it was exactly, but there was one play that, and this is a surprise to me, considering how the offensive line has been for several years, was that Lamb and Wynn picked up a stunt so well, it was perfect. Lamb gets his guy. He moves inside. Wynn picks him up perfectly. They swap. Lamb picks up his guy perfectly. No pressure. Both were walled off. Both were insignificant to the play. And I went back and watched it again. It's like, that just happened. I mean,
they stopped the stunt. Hallelujah.
Yeah, maybe I'm biased, but that's yeah, we're just not used to seeing that.
No, we're used
That's
to the Dolphins tripping all over themselves whenever stunts
and that
happen.
is and that's also a communication situation because they have to know, and you could probably figure they've probably played together some in camp, but Lamb is not the starter. That's Teron Armstead. Wynn has been battling with other guys who have been in the starting lineup or getting work with the one. So to pass it off that well, number one, they're veterans, so they're good at it. Um, that shows that communication is there, that they know how to communicate this stuff. And maybe it wasn't a well run stunt. Maybe the Texans just were really bad at it. But the fact the Dolphins picked it up so easily, it was just very promising there. So once the starters are all in there on the offensive line, I think the running game we'll see in regular season action what we saw yesterday from preseason action.
I'm hoping that, because it's a weird sensation when you say it that way, because you're talking about communication, you're also talking about teaching and learning and taking in instruction. We've been like basically trained, conditioned almost, that Butch Barry was not going to be a good offensive line coach, right? We had heard over and over again from people who had worked with him in Denver that he's terrible, he's not good at his job, he's a jerk, for lack of a better term that I don't want to get demonetized for. But I but yet it seems like there's improvement all along the line. And part of me is like, okay, are we supposed to like Butch Barry or not? Because even Hurricanes people, from when Butch Barry was there for a brief moment of time as the Miami Hurricanes offensive line coach, they were talking about, oh no, his offensive line was terrible. Okay, but this one isn't. So what gives? Are we
I
supposed
think
to like him or not?
I think part of it is, they've talked about that in some of the press availability with the players, that he holds them to a high standard. He's very involved with them. Um, I think that you've got some continuity within the offensive line. You've got four of the five starters or expected starters coming back. Even though Austin Jackson missed a lot of time last year, he was the one practiced with the ones all of training camp. So you've got those four guys. Wynn is a veteran. He's been there since before camp, so they got him early enough. He's learned the terminology. So I think it's a cross between some continuity. You have better talent on the offensive line. Kendall Lamb has really stepped up. I know that he played very well in the limited snaps he got last year, and he went out due to injury. So, and I mean, I know a lot of fans get upset with the depth, but I mean, you can say that about any offensive line in the NFL. There's
Yeah,
just
you're
not
not
a
going to have 9 deep offensive linemen. If everybody
no.
could
I
do
mean,
that.
if you did, I mean, Chris Greer is going to be making some bank in draft picks because you trade those guys. I mean, if you got guys that are eligible to be starters, that's your eighth and ninth guy. Uh, then yeah, those guys go to other teams quick because that tape will show up, and somebody with a terrible offensive line is calling you saying, "Hey, we need a guy."
I don't
We'll
know,
take.
bro. I don't know, because remember Terrence Steele for the Dallas Cowboys. Everybody thought that they put a second round tender on him. They figured, okay, well maybe they'll make a trade with him later down the line. Nope, he's still a Cowboy, and they don't really know what to do with him at this point.
That's I think that's a different situation because there was a contract situation in there with him being a restricted free agent. There was going to be a contract that you have to offer them, and
Right,
that
but after
Dallas,
that's all said and done, though, it's all free game. You can do whatever you
but
want with him.
Dallas could match that. So
But yeah, for the tender. But once the
yeah,
tender, what's the word I'm looking for right now? Once that time period is passed and it's no longer about the tender, then
mm.
it's like, well, now you can trade him for whatever you want. So, but they still are
but
hanging on to him.
but that's late in the game too. So at that point, you've kind of team. I don't want to say teams are settling in, but again, we're talking about. I mean, he's a guy that's a projected starter, and he's going to cost money. So it's kind of like, if the Dolphins wanted to trade, to use another position, if the Dolphins wanted to trade for, say, Jonathan Taylor, well, they have the pieces to go and make that move. The question is, do they have the money to extend him past this season? And so that's kind of the same with Steele. But I mean, I'm talking about like if you let's say Miami's eighth or ninth offensive lineman is good enough to start for some teams. I mean, you could get a mid to late round draft pick for that, and that's what I'm talking about. So yeah, the depth on every team is going to be weak at the offensive line. It's just that's the nature of the NFL these days. So I think Miami's got talented starters. It's the fact that Lamb has missed time in the past. Austin Jackson's missed time in the past. Teron Armstead has missed time.
He's
Isaiah Wynn
missing
has
time
missed
now.
time. So, yeah, and I don't care if Armstead plays again until regular season. I don't care if he practices again. Just put him on the shelf. But you know, it's just at some point you figure, as conditioned that we're going to be seeing the backups to the backups at these positions. But I mean, that's just how it is across the league. So I think there's better talent there now with the ones, and if they can stay healthy, this will be the best offensive line that Miami has had since I know it's 2016 and maybe even earlier than that.
The unicorns: Brandon Albert, Laramie Tunsil, Pouncey was there
Mm-hmm.
too, I think.
Jermon Bushrod
Jermon
and
Bushrod,
Jerwan James
Jawan
was
James,
yep.
as Omar coined them, the unicorns.
Yeah.
When all five of them were on the field at once, forget it. You're not getting to Tannehill. But we'll see if we can get our unicorns in order here. Well, first we have to find 5 unicorns because Isaiah Wynn and Austin Jackson are not very unicorn-ish.
Well,
I'd be happy with Austin Jackson if he became like a Shetland pony. That's what I'd be good
and
with.
listen, I think Isaiah Wynn is interesting in the sense of that, he's played well on the left side in the past. He was not very good last year, but the whole situation in New England was kind of bad anyway. So if he plays well at left guard and plays all season, let's say you get 14 games out of him, and he plays well at that left guard position. He's only 27 years old. I mean, this is a guy you can re-sign to a 4-year deal, maybe a 5-year deal, and get some time out of him and lock down the offensive line. So, we figure you hope they extend Williams and hope they extend Hunt. We've still got Armstead under contract. I mean, there's 4 guys on your offensive line that are, if they play as expected with Wynn, are good to great starters. And Austin Jackson's kind of wait and see. But I mean, if you go into 2024 and you have 4 offensive linemen accounted for and you just need 1, well, that's a lot easier to deal with, especially now that you have a first round pick that you can go out and kind of get your guy.
Fair enough. All right. Any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
I'll go with the quarterback position. I thought Skylar Thompson played very well, given the situation. I don't know what the whole concussion protocol thing was.
I think they just saw that he got his head bonked a little bit, and they were being extra precautionary with the whole thing. He did come back. It was Mike White did not play the rest of the game.
I thought it was his shoulder from the initial looks, but whatever. But I thought he played well. He made some plays. He had a couple of those. No, what are you doing? Oh, that was great. Kind of plays, but
that we're used to that from him. Like preseason, he was
yeah.
like he was a rock star in preseason last year. That's why we had all these nonsensical people being like Skylar Thompson needs to start, not Tua. Like, yeah, that turned out
Well,
to be wrong.
yeah, I mean, he played very well enough last preseason to earn a spot on the team, and then of course, regular season action hit, and it didn't go as well.
Mm-mm.
But it was like, we watched him against the Falcons, and he played with the 3s and the 4s, and it just did not look good at all. It was downright terrible. And then he comes in and he plays with some of the 1s, some of the 2s, and suddenly he looks better. So I think he's not a guy that's going to necessarily elevate the talent around him, but he's a guy that he played, at least in this game, like a good enough backup.
He played like a backup. He played like Mike White's in trouble, in my opinion.
I don't think he's in trouble. I think they keep everybody.
No, I'm not saying that he won't be kept. They're going to keep him. They're going to keep 3 quarterbacks anyway. But I'm thinking that as far as who's their first backup choice going to be, if Mike White doesn't put in a good performance in week 3, I think Skylar might get the nod.
I mean, it comes down to how it looks in camp, really. But I mean, Skylar may just be one of those Matt Moore types where he's like, practice looks not good, and then game time he steps up. So
oh no, yeah, because Alfredo, who's the eyes and ears on the ground for the Five Reasons Sports
Mm.
Network at camp, has been saying that Skylar Thompson's been terrible all through
Yeah.
practice,
So,
every practice.
I mean, you kind of take all of this with kind of a grain of salt with the preseason performances. I mean, last year you knew Teddy Bridgewater was the backup based on the money they're paying him, and you figure Mike White's going to be the backup with the money they're paying him. So, I mean, I think in order for White to lose the job, I think he has to come out next week and just play like complete and total crap. If he plays even remotely well, I think he's still the backup. So, but all in all, I thought it was a good game. It's good to get in the win column. It's good to get some of the rust off the first team. It was good to see the first team offensive line play well. It's good to see them committed to the run. Um, I'm sure there are some negatives to take away from when I watch it again, but overall, I mean, defensively, even the backups, the Texans had one drive that they scored and looked decent. The rest of the game, they were pretty much, ineffective. So, um, just a good all around game to watch. So hopefully, a lot of that type of result will carry over to the regular season. And I don't know, man. I'm looking forward to it. I'm getting more excited. It makes me nervous.
The more excited we get, the more nervous we get if we get let down. No, that part I definitely relate. All right, folks. Thank you all so much for listening. I really appreciate you always being here for us. We are going to have a lot more content for you on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Duke, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. Folks, for those of you who have not already done so, if you have not checked out You Break Wheel Fix yet to give your ride that new look, that Miami Dolphins overhaul that you really need, and hopefully your wife won't get mad at you for, go ahead and reach out to them at 305-748-0112, or you can go online at youbreakwheelfix.com to get an estimate in just a few minutes, or if you just need your wheels fixed, they can help you out with that too. Hence the name You Break Wheel Fix. And of course, you can go to prizepicks.com, use that promo code 5, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. I almost won $500 on two separate accounts for both my fiance and my father. I was one player away. I was actually kind of upset about that, but it does prove that it can be done. So go ahead, use the promo code 5, FIVE, go to prizepicks.com, deposit $100, and get started winning today. Once again, Duke, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. And for those of you who are going to be listening tomorrow, we will see you tomorrow for another episode of Fins Nation.